Yeah, I got this. Welcome everyone and welcome everybody online. Oh, wait a second, I got the wrong screen showing. One moment. Technical difficulties. I think I might have some issues with display settings. Give me 1 second, people online, but in the meantime, welcome. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different where we try and live code an application. So I've already set up a little bit of it, but we'll walk through that code in just a second and then we'll get started. So this one is mirroring appropriately. Maybe I just need to refresh this. Yep, there we go. Awesome. All right, so let's head back over to this. So real quick, I'm an engineering manager here at Black Airplane. I have a background in native Android and iOS development. I've been using Flutter for a little over 3 years now. We've published over 12 different Flutter apps and we have several more in progress. And I love it so much that I also use it for my own startup and side projects. I want to give a quick shout out to Black Airplane as a thank you for letting us use this awesome space and also for the food and beer. Black Airplane is a leading development agency in the Southeast, and we have a special team here that can produce pretty much any kind of digital product that you could think of nowadays. I do have a little bit of Flutter news before we hop into building the app. So Flutter Forward is a big Flutter conference coming up here in January. Make sure to tune into that to see all the new stuff coming out with Flutter. And then we also have a company that reached out to us that is hiring called MacroStacks, and they are hiring a front-end engineer. I don't know if Brandon, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, they're based out of Colorado. I want to say Boulder, but definitely Colorado. I think they'd be open to a remote person, but looking to hire a fairly senior person and build the team around them. So just go to their website. Should be front-end engineer with a specialty in Flutter. And I told the VP of engineering we would say this.
So today Brandon and I kind of bounced around different ideas for what we wanted to do today. We wanted it to be kind of holiday themed, so we wanted to build a kind of Santa themed app. So Brandon sent me a long laundry list of things that he wanted in the app, and it probably would have taken me 3 months to build it. So I've done a little bit of previous setup work here, but the basic app that we're going to go for is kind of a utility app for Santa, if you were to imagine that. So he's going to have his naughty and nice list here inside, just kind of a list view on this first tab, and then you're going to actually select what you're going to deliver there, and on also an address that it's supposed to be delivered to, and then we'll actually show the route on the map. So some of the initial setup I've done is this kind of layout navigation, as well as getting API keys and everything for Google Maps and just getting the map to show. So we're going to see how this goes. This is probably the first time we've done this intense of a live coding here at Flutter Atlanta, so we're going to try and see how this goes, and I'll kind of talk you through everything that I do as I go build it. So again, I do have a Firebase project set up for this. Let's go ahead and get that pulled up really quickly, just in case we need it. And so we're going to be using Cloud Firestore to store all of the different list documents, so we will dig into that probably first here. So to get this started, let's actually look through some of the code that I've already written here. So we have a home view class, that's basically our tab bar view, which enables this switching and the tab at the bottom. And then I've made different widgets for the delivery map view, and then also this naughty nice list. Right now this is just a container here. We do need to switch this out to our naughty nice list view, and then we can add const. Clean this up a little bit for our linter. So it's basically going to be these two tabs, and we'll give this a hot restart. I also apologize if I have to run any Xcode builds that take a little bit longer. So as you can see, this is just kind of an out-of-the-box view, so we're going to head over to this and start modifying it first. So the naughty nice list view is going to basically just be a list view of the different people that we want to go and visit. So out of the box, added this scaffold. We won't need this. We're going to currently have this just return a list view with nothing in it, just so we can have a nice clean slate to start with here. Go ahead and refresh this to make it look a little bit nicer. We will need to do some data modeling. I have not done that yet, so let's go ahead and create a folder for our models here in our data folder. And we're just going to have one, we can just call it, let's see, maybe a destination. Make a new file called destination.dart. I do have a handy short snippet here that allows me to do a quick class that's going to use JSON serializable and freezed, which are two code generation tools to save you a little bit of time. So we'll just fill this out really quickly. And it automatically puts an ID in there for us. We can go ahead and get this running. Runner, watch, ding, outputs. So this is going to run a code generation. This is actually going to watch anytime we change this class, and it'll go ahead and generate those files for you automatically, so we don't have to continuously run this as we build this app out. Let that run for a second just to make sure it succeeds the first time. So let's add some fields on maybe a kid that we would want to visit to drop off. So I imagine we'll probably have a name for them. So we will add a name field, and then we probably will have an address, but we're not actually, we may store the address, and then we're also going to want to store a lat long. And I'm going to do this just as doubles to make parsing a little bit easier here. So we'll have required double lat, required double long, and then probably a description of whatever we're going to be delivering there. So we'll just do items, or we'll just say description. So we'll go ahead and let that run, and now we're going to need a service to interact with this in Firestore. Pretty much all of our projects here use this nice handy dandy Firestore helper that I've built. This allows a very easy way to create, read documents, and parse to and from those that freeze model that we just created. So to utilize this, we can just create a new file here called destination service. Dart, and then I have another snippet to make this a little bit quicker, and we can just fill in the name of the class, do our imports, and then here is where the parsing will get handled to and from the document from Firestore. So this is going to automatically out of the box do all of those kind of basic CRUD operations. Create, read, update, delete. Now we can just call this service and do that. All we need to do is specify the collection that we want this to happen in Firestore, and we'll do destinations. So now let's go ahead and head back to our list view. Here, the Naughty Nice list. And for this example, we are using GitX. So if you see some GitX state management stuff, this is typically what I use on my personal projects just because it's light and quick. It's going to allow us to do this fairly easily. So let's head over to our Naughty Nice list controller, which is where we're actually going to handle all of the data. And we are going to first set up an RX list of destinations. And we will make this a observable list. And then we're going to want to listen to this. So I'm actually going to take advantage of a Firestore feature which utilizes streams. So this list will actually update real time just as you modify the data. So that way I don't have to do different read calls every time we add new documents to that list. So we can go ahead and do this on init, and we are going to register a stream subscription. So we're going to need to make sure that we dispose of this properly. And we can just do subscription is equal to our new destination service that we just made. And then let's import this to make our lives a little bit easier with the autocomplete. Stream list. We're not going to limit it for this case. You probably would if this was a production application, just so you don't overhit your Firestore requirements. And then listen, we're going to get a list of data, stream list here, limit is required, we'll just add a limit here of 100, and then destinations dot value is equal to data. So now anytime we get a new stream hit, we're just gonna completely reset the destinations here. And because we will observe this, it will automatically rebuild our UI. But before we do that, we need to make sure we dispose of this properly. So we're gonna override the onClose method in this controller, and we're going to do subscription, cancel, and then I typically like to set it equal to null just to double check that that's getting 100% cleared out. So now we are listening for the data on the Firestore document, but we haven't actually created any yet. So let's go ahead and make a new page that's going to act as our form for creating these different destinations. So I actually have the Get CLI installed, which is one of the reasons I really do like GetX, because it kind of creates the files for you. So I can call get create page, and then we can just name this create destination. So this is going to make a couple different files for me and routes for everything. So I can head over to this new folder under modules called create destination, and we'll be able to start modifying this. But we need to first have a way that we can actually navigate here. So if we go over to our naughty nice list, we are going to want a way to show maybe a floating action button here that allows us to add another destination, but we have that logic actually stored in the home view. So if we head over to the home view, here is our actual scaffold. So we can add a floating action button here, and then we can check to see if the current index is on this list view. Current index.value is equal to 0, and then we can add a floating action button here. And then we can override this on pressed in just a second. And then otherwise, we'll just leave this as null. So this way, the floating action button will actually disappear as we head over to the map view. But this on pressed, we are going to want to create some new logic here. Since this is such a simple method, I'm just going to go ahead and navigate to the page that we want to go to. So we'll do routes dot, and then we'll import this, and then create destination. So let's go ahead and do a hot refresh here. We should see a floating action button up here. Yep, we didn't make it actually have an icon, so let's go ahead and add like a plus icon to this. Icon, or is it child? Yep, icons that add. There's GitHub Copilot helping us out. And then we'll hit refresh. And there's the plus icon that we were looking for. So now when I hit this, it should navigate unexpected string to named instead. So we need to switch this method out to toNamed so we can use a route name versus an actual screen. Give it a refresh. And now we're landing on our create destination view. So now we can start working on this view, which is going to actually have a form here to kind of get everything set up. So let's get rid of all of this out of the box stuff in this controller that we don't need. And then let's head over to this create destination view. And in this create destination view, we're probably just going to have a list view here with a whole bunch of different fields that we'll need. So let's also rename this to just create destination so it looks a little bit nicer. Do a hot refresh, and now we can see our blank list view here. So we need to make some fields for all of those different things that we wanted to enter. So let's go ahead and add children here, and then we'll start adding some text form fields. This text form field, decoration, we'll just go ahead and autocomplete some Copilot to help speed us up a little bit. Enter a name for the destination, enter the person's name. So let's see how this is looking. So as you can see, it goes all the way to the sides. We don't really want that. We can add some padding here, edge insets. My design friend once told me always do padding in 8s because it works on all different screen pixel densities. So normally you should do padding in portions of 8. 16 typically works really well for this. So you can see as we go in, now we have a little bit of extra room, and it has a nice hint and a label for this field. So we can go ahead and add a couple of these. Let me look at the, let me look at my model again, destination.dart. So we had name, address, lat, long. I'm going to actually use the Google Places auto picker to complete these. So the only other text field we need really is the description, and we can start digging into the Google Places autocomplete. So let's head back over to there, create destination view. So let's create this. And this will just be presence. Presence to deliver. And this is where you could just describe what this person is supposed to be. So now we need to look into this Google Places autocomplete. So let's head over to not publics, pub.dev, Google Places, and let's look, I believe this was the one that I added to our pubspec.yaml. So this is going to be a nice form field that Google supplies that allows you to basically just start typing an address and then you can click on it and get all the information out of it. So let's go ahead and try and make this happen. Typically, you would probably want this to look like a form field or something, just to make our lives a little bit easier. I might just do this as a quick button. So let's do that. Text button. On pressed, we will handle this in a second. And then the child is just going to be text as choose destination. Make this constant. And then let's see what this is looking like. Let's actually make this an elevated button so it's a little bit more obvious. And then let's actually add a little bit of padding to make this a little bit nicer. Only, caps lock. Only top. And then we'll do 16. So this just spaces it out a little bit, and then we want all of our business logic really to be separated into the controller. So let's add a function in the create destination controller. Pick destination, and then we're going to steal this little prediction is equal to this is autocomplete show. We need to do some import, add the async modifier. I believe I added this. Let's head over and check our pubspec. Flutter Google Places, is this a different package? Flutter, nope, this should be it. Let's make sure we get our import correctly. Head back over to the create destination controller. Recognizing it now. No. Let's try this. Import package Google Places. All right. Show undefined class prediction. It's kind of interesting. API key. We do have the API key already put in here in a constants file. And then looks like we're missing a context, so we can actually just hand this a build context here and pass this in. All right, so that should at least go ahead and prompt the places.show, and then we actually are going to store this prediction. So let's go ahead and do rx prediction. Prediction, and then we will do rx prediction. And then what type of, it's not liking it when I import this. Google Maps web service, let's try importing this, see if that helps us out.
prediction is part of two packages then?
I'm sorry?
Is prediction part of two packages?
It looks like it was part of a separate imported packages, which was the Google Maps web service. So this Google Places package relies on this Google Maps web service package. For some reason, it wants me to import this directly. I'm going to ignore this warning for now. This file did not fix that. I have to really add both of these. Okay. So now we're just going to set the prediction.value equal to this. And then we can actually update and display that once we do this. So let's go ahead and call this on our onPressed. So we'll do await controller dot, and we'll make this asynchronous. Pick destination, and we'll pass it the context of the current build cycle. And let's see if we can get this to appear here. So we'll go ahead and do a hard refresh, and then head over here, hit choose destination, missing plugin exception. Oh, I'm gonna have to run a Xcode build here to get this because we installed a new package, I believe. Or I'll double check as well to make sure that this is supported by iOS, but let's go ahead and run a Flutter pub-get. Let's head over to, so it is supported by iOS. There may be some other setup that we have to do here. But let's go ahead and run a new Xcode build. I know I'm going really fast, I'm just trying to make sure I get as much of this in here as possible. While this builds, does anybody have any questions so far?
No.
Awesome. We'll let this pod install run.
Randall doesn't like that you used getX.
I know, it's up to everybody's preference. The longest part about building apps with Flutter is waiting on these Xcode builds.
I have a quick question, actually.
Yeah.
When you were typing out the model earlier,
Mhm.
It was pre-populating things already. Was that extension or?
Those are code snippets that I've added to VS Code, but I made those snippets myself.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So there's some snippets that you can get out of the box with, like awesome Flutter snippets was right there. So these are a lot of the ones where it's like you can just type like stateless W and then hit enter and it'll do a whole stateless widget kind of scaffold.
Yeah, I've seen those, but like when you were typing the model out,
Yeah.
it was like string name and string city and stuff like that. Is that from this as well?
That one was one that I made myself. So you can add those in VS Code. I would have to, let me see if I can, snippets. Yeah, so configure user snippets and then specifically for Dart. So here are the ones like the data model one that I had made myself,
Okay,
which you can set up.
gotcha.
These are fairly easy to set up if you're doing those things a lot, so it's definitely worth the time.
Nice.
So while this builds, we can go ahead and look at some more things. We're going to have to end up wrapping this in a form, and I'm not sure if we're going to actually add any validation this time since it's just us using it. You would typically want to add validation, but just to speed some things up. We will add some onSave methods and to basically make the destination. Xcode build times.
What do you mean by validation methods?
So validation would basically mean we don't necessarily want the name to be allowed to be empty. So if we didn't have validation there, it could cause an error, or a lot of times if you had an email field, you want to make sure that's an email, a valid email. It kind of just makes sure that the user entered content appropriately. There we go, Xcode build done. Let's see if we can get this autocomplete to pop up. All right. Choose destination. Yep, here's our search bar, so let's just search like black airplane. Oh, and we're getting an error. Let's see. Null check operation used on a null value. Let's see what's going on here. Types. Oh, it looks like it wanted a little bit more data from us, even though it wasn't requested. So let's head over here or to our controller, create destination controller, and let's maybe add type here. Let me see what they had on this. So types, online documentation. Nope, that's just the Flutter documentation. Let's see, example. Do I have types associated here? They do not have types associated here, but it looks like it's required now. Let's head over to GitHub real quick and see if other people are having this issue. Types. Here we go, open issue. So they have an unreleased version that fixes this issue, but this is an open issue. Manage this by setting types, components, and strict bounds. Just not sure exactly what has to go in types, because it's just a string. So let's actually try and maybe pull this version of Flutter Google Places if they have it fixed. So let's head over to our pubspec.yaml, Flutter Google Places. We're actually going to do get here, and then URL, and then we will copy this URL in here, and it is hard working with so little space. Let's do a Flutter pub get and see if this works. That's automatically running. Get not resolve host name. Maybe doing this one. I need a space there. Let's try this. We will have to do another Xcode build. Awesome, so let's give this a try. Let's see if this will run for us without having to set any types. Hopefully it won't take us quite as long to build. Look at this. So the prediction, this is where we're actually going to get the lat long out of. Value. So this is where you can actually get different place IDs. If you've never worked with the Google Places API before, you can get everything from pictures to like the address itself to also lat longs. So, at least I believe you can. You used to be able to. Let's make sure that I don't make this crash while we're running. And all of these different parameters in here, typically you can add like your current location if you wanted to, so it will request or recommend locations around you, and all kinds of different things like that, as well as customization as how this view looks. Here. All right, let's see if this will work for us. There we go. So if we were to pick like black airplane, and then there we go. So that's exactly the flow that we would be looking for. Now, let's try and display some information about the place that we picked. Head back over to this view here. And we'll actually change this top to vertical, or instead of only, we'll do symmetric, and then vertical, and then spelled vertical wrong. Oh my goodness. Vertical. So we'll add some conditional text here. So we'll basically say controller dot prediction dot value. If it's not null, then we kind of want to display the information that we want to about it, and otherwise we'll just display an empty box. One comma here. We can just value, description, and we'll do, just to protect ourselves. So there's the description that we're getting right there. To make sure this updates, we will need to wrap this in an ODX, so we'll wrap this whole thing real quick, just in case we needed to rebuild more in the future. Okay, so we're now displaying this. We do need to figure out how to get the lat long out of here, but let's go ahead and set up one more button. We're going to have a floating action button here on pressed. This is going to actually hit a function that we still need to make, and then the child is just going to be the plus button. So this is how we're going to actually create this destination here once we fill out all of this information. So we need to wrap this list view in a form so that way we can call some onSave methods. Let's do that. Form. Head back over to our controller, and I'm going to set up a form key that we can access in here. So form, or what is it? Global key, form state, form key, form state, and then we can head back over to the view and assign this key controller.form key. So that's going to allow us to access this. Then we'll need some onSaved methods here, and we'll fill this out in just a second. So this is where you could also add your onValidation methods on that, where is it, validator. So this is where you could check if this data was valid or not. So I could just say like return if the value is not null or not empty in this case. I'm not going to add any validation messages just to save us a little bit of time here. Then we need to add, go back to our controller. So we have this getting created. Let's do future void create destination. And this is going to call that validate and then save. And we'll set up the save methods in a second, which are actually going to create rxstring name, rxstring description. And then we are going to do a destination service dot create, and this is where we can pass it a destination, or we're going to fill out all of this data that we need. So we're going to have name dot value. We'll just give it. Sorry, I can't do this. Set these equal to empty string for right now. So name.value, the address and lat longs will pull out in a second, and then description.value. See if I can go ahead and format this. And we'll actually return and call async here. All right. So this is going to return a destination. So we'll just do this for. All right, so now let's see if we can get this address out of here. So prediction, dot value. So we have distance, match substrings, structured formatting, place ID, reference. I think this might actually be here, structured formatting. Let's see here. Prediction dot value dot distance terms types. Interesting. Looks like the description. Let's see if there's any questions on their GitHub. New way of getting lat long. So this was actually the text field way. Place details, results, geometry, location height. I think we have to do another request here to get actual place details, so let's see if we can figure that out really quickly. Places autocomplete. Let's see. How's our time doing, Brandon? How long have I been going? Too long?
7:16. Santa's gotta leave for the factory.
For the bar? I knew we were gonna try and do too much. Okay. Let's try and run through this just really quickly. We'll just add in some hard-coded values here instead of trying to pull it out of this.
I think there are some examples here, right? You have to call get details by place ID. That is-
Get detail by place ID?
Yeah, you have to, I mean, your prediction object has the place ID.
Okay.
And then pass the place ID with that number.
Yep, so you would have, you have your place ID from the prediction, get lat long from the prediction. And then places, I'm not sure if we have the import for this. Places. Full places. I may need a separate. Is the autocomplete place details? Yeah, because we're getting this prediction, and I have the place ID like you said. I think I just don't have the.
So we should have Google Map Places. That's another class object for that. So which is kind of you pass API key and then headers.
Okay.
I think in the GitHub example tab, the first example has it.
So which one are you looking at? This Flutter Google Places?
Yeah.
And then the example?
Yeah. If you just go to maybe I'll search for that.
So it would be details. Yeah, place details,
Yeah.
places, Google Maps places. Where are they importing this from? Maybe it is included. So we can try this real quick. Drop this in here. Okay, Google Maps API key. I may have to install this Google API headers.
Just an import.
Yeah, I think so. Post that. All right. Need to let it run. There we go. Prediction. We can just force this or dot value, and then dot place ID. All right, so that should give us the address. Detail dot result dot address components. We don't really need the whole address. This is mainly for just display purposes if we wanted it, and then the detail dot result dot, let's see, I think it's like geometry, yep, and then location, flat, there we go. All kinds of data they include in here. And we'll do the same thing for longitude. Okay. So that should create the destination for us. Const. Underscore. And then just out of this if statement real quick, we'll just hit a return to make the linter happy. Or I think it's right here. Okay. So this, now the only thing we need to do to create a destination is just do these onsaved. We'll just do controller dot description is equal to value. And then, all right. Since I did install something, I do need to run this real quick, and then hopefully we will have created destinations, and we can work on displaying them.
Or somebody else is asking.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So when you import through GitLab, right? I mean GitHub,
Mhm.
does it compile every time?
Compile every time.
Yeah.
So it will still have a version in the pubspec.lock. So if you're just like committing to master, it's better to do like a Flutter clean.
No. I think you imported using GitHub.
Yeah.
So at that time, how does it work?
It's going to pull the code on the master branch.
On the master branch and compile as a library and then
Mhm.
include it as part of it.
Mhm.
So every time if you are doing any run, it has to keep on compiling.
No, so it's gonna pull that code and store it in your pub cache.
Oh, okay.
So it will be there. The main issue is if people push to master and there's not real versioning there, your pub cache could get outdated, so you might have to merge that.
So if I run any vulnerability checks and all, how does it work if I'm referring like that?
If you're doing
Any kind of code checks for the vulnerabilities for the libraries and other stuff, right? If I run a dynamic scan or something like that.
I'm not sure exactly for you're talking about like GitHub scanning the code for vulnerabilities.
I want to scan my app to
Mhm.
my code and their libraries to see if there is any kind of vulnerabilities or detected or anything like that.
So then I guess that you're in your CI/CD, it's going to clone down your app and all of the packages, and then you would run whatever your script is over that entire code base. So on your nightly or whatever your cadence is.
Now, when I do this with the Git, how does it work? Refers.
If you run on a CI/CD platform like CodeMagic, for example, when it clones down your project, it's also going to pull in all of those different dependencies. So all of the code will be there, fresh installed, because they wipe the machines or almost wipe the machines between them. So let's see if we can get this to work real quick. We're just going to name test presence. We're going to pick a place real quick. Again, we'll just pick Black Airplane if we can get it. And then we'll hit this plus button. And I believe that created it. I did not navigate back on when we hit that. Or let me actually make sure we even called this. We didn't even call this. So we still need to do that. Controller dot, what did we name our method? We actually probably need to controller dot say or create destination async. We will await this, and then we will just call get dot back, which will navigate us back. So let's actually do this one more time. Do a refresh here, and let's see if we can get this to create. So test residence. Choose destination, black airplane, and then create. Give it a second. Typically you would add a loading state and then it goes back. So let's double check in our Firestore real quick to make sure we are creating this appropriately. Let's give this a refresh. I currently have the Firestore in test mode, so there's no security rules, just for example. So the address, again, we're just throwing in one address component, but you would list out the whole address component. And then it has all of our different data, including the lat long there. So now let's head over to our naughty nice list view. Let's get these displaying. So first, let's wrap this in OBX so it will rebuild this list. And we're actually going to do list view.builder. And we'll do an item builder. And we'll do list tile. Make this easy. And then the item count is going to be equal to controller dot destinations dot length, and then the title of this is just going to be controller dot destinations index or dot value dot index, I think. Dot what do we call it? Name. We'll need to wrap this in a text widget. Here. Let's refresh. So there's our list tile here. Just to make it pop a little bit more, we'll go ahead and refactor this. We'll wrap it with a card. Pop a little bit more, and we'll add some padding in here again. So all 16. Make this constant. And maybe we'll add the presence as well as the subtitle here. Or the, what is it? Is it subtitle? All right, so this is basically going to be the list. We're going to keep this simple right now. As you could imagine, you could expand upon this. Maybe we'll add an action real quick just for, because why not? Trailing icon button, delete, and instead of, we'll just throw it in here. Destination service dot delete, and then controller. It's not an ID, get rid of this. So now you should be able to delete these just like that, so you could go through and check off your theoretical naughty nice list. So let's add these again. So then the last portion of this would be showing it on our map. So delivery map view. So again, here we have our Google Maps. This is probably where you would want to, you might add, let's see, what are they? We could either add these as a polyline if we wanted to do like a route for Santa, whatever he would want to go through, or you could just add these as markers. Let's do this first just to keep it simple. Set marker. Interesting. Dot to set, and then we'll do a marker. Let's just see if we can get something popping up here. About constant value. Yep. Let's use collection literals when possible. What is it done for? The type of an element is in a constant set. Okay. So we can just add them like this. So we'll actually wrap this in an OBX here because we'll need it to react. And just to avoid having to duplicate some of the logic in our other controller since we're running low on time, I'm actually going to do get.find, and we add our naughty nice list controller, and we'll actually grab the destinations out of that, and we'll run a map on this, and then we'll convert this to a marker, and we can do e.id, and gets very messy very quickly, but we don't need this. And dot latitude. It's hard to see. Get that fine map. Here we go. Marker. Dot to list, maybe, and then dot to set. See if it likes that anymore. They should be lat and long. Probably can get rid of this thing. And get rid of that. Marker ID is a specific class. Marker ID. E.id. Okay. All right. So this is actually loading the markers from that same list that we were just creating. So we should be able to head over here and actually create another one.
Do Brandon.
Brandon.
And I'd like a football.
Flip. And just because I don't want to change the map zoom, let's pick you somewhere in like Canada. That's not working for me. Canada.
It's the entire country.
Argentina. You're going in Argentina.
Okay.
All right. Head over to the map and boom, there it is in Argentina. So if you wanted to expand upon this, we've been doing this for quite a while now, but if you wanted to expand upon this, you could do some routing or whatever kind of directions you wanted to do. But Brandon wanted us to have some sort of app that showed a little bit more advanced stuff, so we got to do a little bit of the work with the Google Maps, the geolocation, and some different state management with the list and everything like that. So, is there any questions before we wrap up this broadcast?
And that you saved Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys again. I think we're meeting in January.
January 12th.
But there is also that Flutter Forward on January 25th. So make sure to tune in for that.